Hey guys, before we start with the video, some super fantastic news. We are ready with our beta waitlist, so jump on our website, register and be part of the beta version, which we plan to start before end of the year.
All right, we're gonna get into this. So this is very much about you guys. I've said that a few times. I can't stress that enough. Sure, they're gonna film some of it. Yes, it might go on the YouTube because it is relevant information. I'm sure you guys are gonna ask questions that a lot of the sim racing community does have. But this is the chance that you don't normally get with other games, where you are essentially one-on-one with the developers, with the guys behind the game. We've got microphones. We're gonna come to you guys, ask questions, tire model, damage model, rule sets, esports events, whatever it is you guys want, tracks, cars, anything you guys want to ask. If there's certain things that contractually they can't answer, I'm sure they'll let you know for those reasons, but they want to be as open as possible with you guys to give you guys all the information possible at an early stage. We'll get into it. I've got a few community questions, but before we do that, I'll let you two reintroduce yourself a little bit. Morris obviously spoke to these guys on Friday, and Krzysztof, this is your first time, but Morris, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so first of all, it's really great to see what happened over the last 2 days. Having that much guys here today, also impressive, because I thought, okay, Sunday you will all leave and that's it. So it's great to see that many people here. Hopefully you really enjoyed the last 2 days. We are really happy because we felt there was a nice vibe, and we are really happy that everything works great. So it's always a bit tricky having that much people on a game that early. So yeah, we are really happy, and so nice to have this question session. Yes.
They haven't met you yet, so lead programmer behind this effort, but maybe let them know a little more about you.
Yeah, so my name is Krzysztof, and I'm lead programmer of this project, just like Matt said. And I'm in the industry for like 7 years now, and I've met Morris like 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and we started our journey creating RENNSPORT together with our team. And really nice to see you guys here. I hope you enjoy our game, and we can go with the questions, I think.
Obviously, a lot of the stuff here we've been doing with the widescreens, and these guys all use triples. VR is certainly a question. This is, I guess, more of a question for you, Krzysztof, but a lot of the community was wondering what is the triple screen support early on, and with Unreal Engine 5, is there an issue with it, or is it going to be coming very soon?
With triple screen, for now, Unreal isn't really very good with it. And since we switched to Unreal 5 recently, they also introduced some new bugs that we hope that they will fix soon. And for now, we are working on the triple screen, and we encountered some problems to properly implement it. And as far as I know, we are not the only ones having those issues. And we work on it, and we are in close contact with Epic Games. We hope that they will help us solve it, but I can assure you that we will do it sooner or later. I think sooner.
Interestingly, you touched on Epic Games, because that was one of the other community sort of, these aren't really direct questions, but based on what the popular questions were, the FAQs, if you will, people were asking, maybe this is for Morris, I'm not sure, is there going to be an exclusivity with Epic, or will it come through its own launcher, Steam? Is there any issues with that, or any plans for that?
No, that we are really totally open. It's not only on one thing or on one platform. That's really the mindset we have for all the things. So creating something which is open for all parties, having connections with all partners, and therefore we will not only go with the Epic Store or whatever. Yeah.
Cool. All right, I've got more of these, but if you guys have questions, now's the time. Anyone want to start? Felix, just pick a hand and we'll go around.
Hello, I'm Phil Dennis. My only question was, what is the end goal of the physics for the game? Do you want it to be more realistic or more sim racer oriented?
We talked about this yesterday, so
It's for everyone.
yeah. And I got your feedback yesterday, Phil. So Phil said at the moment we are very close to the real car or the real driving. So you have this experience when I got it right. Only the brakes, okay. Yeah. that maybe comes from that we start to analyzing and working on the physics with some engineers from the automotive industry, and they gave a strong feedback from the real world perspective, and now we are getting more and more into getting feedback from you, from the sim racing side, and then I'm quite sure the physics will be somewhere in between, but that's a thing we could really develop over the next 18, 20 months. So it's the base of the physics is there and works really good. And where we end up, it's an open thing, and it's a thing we could develop together.
Cool. Anyone else, or do you have anything to add to that, Krzysztof?
I think Morris said everything I would want to say.
Cool.
I have a question regarding the cars. Is it going to be mostly like a GT focus sim, or will there be like Formula style cars and all that, all that stuff?
Would like to have all the possible cars in the game, from history side, open wheelies, electric motorsport cars, whatever. At the moment, yeah, you're right. We have GT3 cars, and we have only 2 automobile partners at the moment. As you saw, we will announce another 3 within the next months, and the base for all these partners is coming together on a GT3 level. That's a bit the base you could have for all partners, where we have the possibility to do sporting together. But for sure, there will be a lot of other cars in the game, historic cars, also electric cars, and so on. So we are totally open to implement what really makes sense and what brings fun.
I'm going to add to that. Obviously, you have automotive partners with BMW and Porsche that are here, and that's what we've been racing. It's cool that you're going to open it up to other cars, but is a partnership required? Is it something that you only will add the cars that you have a partnership with that company, or will you add other cars as well, say Dallara, if you're not in partnership with them?
So there are always 3 steps. So there will be a lot of partners just for the cars and for the licensings. So what we're also offering is it's really a partnership for a bit more. But I'm quite sure we will have all the really important brands within the next 12, 18 months.
Perfect. Cool.
Got a question on like the ownership model. Are you thinking of doing it as like a one-time purchase, a subscription model, play to earn, free to play? I mean, there's loads of options these days.
We announced that there will be a free to enter system, so that's really important for us to get a maximum of users on the platform and show them what really is possible with the game and how the game looks like. So it's free to enter. There's really a bit of internal discussion at the moment, no final decision how the free to enter really looks like, if it's giving the tracks for free or giving them tracks and cars, and so that. But there will be a free to enter possibility, definitely, so that you could start without paying anything, and then there will be a monetization system which is really close to the things you really see on all the other games and publishers out there. Yeah. Season passes or yearly fee. So that's the base.
I think everyone kind of felt that the netcode and the way the cars were moving was pretty good, but we weren't sure if it was LAN-based or was it like online. Like, is this what you'll get if you race from home against other cars, or was it like a LAN event which has like much better?
Yeah, so for the event, everything is LAN-based. We have servers here running, so pings are very low. We were around 2 milliseconds as far as I remember. So when you will play from home, probably pings will be a little bit more than that. But we did some tests on cloud servers, and there's not that much big difference, so it should be stable.
Hi, Max Benecki. I have a question regarding an ELO system. Do you plan on implementing that? And if, do you have concrete plans on how that's going to look like?
ELO system. So I guess we'll give it the direct example. iRating sort of has your driver license rating. And actually, I'm going to add to it as well, because that's a great question. But one of the community questions was also safety rating on top of that. Is there also a taking wrecking and crashing into consideration?
So the most important thing on this is we are planning really to have a kind of pyramid system into the platform where you have a closed system to jump in as a free-to-play gamer and having the possibility really to get a kind of ranking and a system to go up to the highest sports events we are planning to do with ESL and other partners. So that will be a closed system and system where we'll be in, and all the really important things you know from iRacing and other platforms we will also having involved to make it really clear, getting the right partners in a game session, having a fairness rating and all these things. Therefore, maybe it makes sense, Krzysztof, that we have a special team for these things. Jump deeper in that would be maybe a special thing, but it's definitely in our plan, and it's definitely what we have in mind, taking best parts from what is out there and trying to do it better, or making a better system. Yeah.
And I'm just going to ask as well, is that, I assume, going to be transparent, like they'll see the rating, or is it going to be something like a Counter-Strike or a League of Legends where it's kind of a hidden ELO that is in the algorithm? Is it, because again, in some games it's very obvious what your rating is, and then in others it's not. Is there a plan for that yet?
To be honest, that's very, very early in this thing. In my mind, in the most things we are doing, we are trying to do it extremely open, being really transparent and all the things. And that's, I'm quite sure it's the end, how it ends up with these things as well, being transparent, showing really what is the driver, what has he done, how is his rating. There are, in Germany sometimes there are several questions with privacy and so on, but my vision would be being as transparent as really as possible.
Cool.
And I would like to know whether you plan on adding plugins so you can data analysis with Motec and stuff, and also how accessible the channels will be, because I guess like with manufacturers involved, they don't want to have all the car data being revealed in the game, but will they still be accessible to a certain extent, or what's the planning on that?
Also, we try to be as open as possible with APIs, implementing partners easy as possible in all areas. Tracking some data will be an issue, definitely. So it is possible that we are working on a system where we really could show what happens and what were the kilometers a person drives and what is the history for a car. Each car will be a special item at the end. So these things are implemented yet. So what I can say, I think Unicorns of Love drove the most kilometers on the session. They drove more than 2,000 kilometers.
Yeah,
so there were several things implemented, and we will use it in the best way to make a good game.
Just to elaborate too, obviously Krzysztof, because I think Mishi's more specifically looking as well at tire data, the standard sort of telemetry that you get from the car as well. I don't know, what's the other ones you guys, fuel, mileage, and strategy and stuff, because obviously, as Mishi's alluding to, there's JRT, Race Labs, lots of third-party applications that come in. So beyond just the history and mileage, how much of that's accessible?
Yeah, so two things. I think the question also was about the modding and adding external content from users. That's how I understood it. So for that, we have big plans of adding that. So we want to make it possible for you guys to add new cars, add new maps. We are working on adding some modding tools based on our engine. So it's our Unreal Engine 5. We try to export the engine in a way so we can work just like us and add new cars, add new maps, just like we do, and then with some technical support from us, distribute them later.
Yeah, so it'll all be accessible. Cool. I think that, considering the early stage, pretty much answers it.
So you're 2 years in, basically, into the project. What was the biggest challenge in this time that you solved? What's the biggest challenge that you yet see ahead and are not sure how to solve? And maybe connected to that is, in general, where do you see the game in comparison to the others? Like, what are your strengths compared to those in the market? What are the weaknesses?
So maybe I'll start off. Oh,
yes, start you.
I will start with those challenges for at least the technical side. The biggest challenge that we solved, at least partially, is making the physics work like it does now. So that almost 2 years that we spent on it. All the time we worked hard on the physics to make it work with Unreal, because Unreal physics is not usable for sim racing because it's undeterministic, and we just needed to have a separate code running in synchronization with Unreal for that. That was a huge amount of work to do, but it works for now, with some things still to be done, but you'll see improvement in next month. The biggest thing that we still didn't solve, you heard about it already, triple screen. Probably there will be more, but from the existing ones that we are aware of already, triple screen is probably the biggest one.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Unreal was so we start developing on Unreal 4 because there was no Unreal 5 when we start, and by October, November last year, when we really finished the prototype, we showed it to several partners, and it worked really great and looks good. And then Unreal came and said, could it be an option to jump on Unreal 5 because it's more future-orientated? And we had a very long discussion, but at the end we ended up and said, okay, we will go this way. This, to be honest, cost us 4 or 5 months at the end, because that was really a lot of troubleshooting and a lot of work for the team. But I'm quite sure now we are on a stable base with Unreal 5, and for the future it was the best decision we could make, having this engine implemented for all the graphics things and so on. That will bring us a lot of opportunities for the next years. So this is maybe a bit for the future on the graphics side, and with Unreal I think we have the best decision for the future. To be honest, there are a lot of other games out there. They also have a nice graphic, great graphic with Unreal 4. So I think that will not be the point where we are better at the end of the day. I think it's important to have a great physics working. That's the base for everything, have a nice graphic. But I'm quite sure what makes a difference at the end is implementation of mobile devices. So stay in contact with the overall platform all the time so that you could organize your game. You could invite your partners for a session during the day, and at night you just have to jump in your rig and start. So that there are a lot of things we will implement, and which brings it maybe hopefully on the next level, so that you could use it better in the tournament way and with your friends and so on. Yeah.
Strengths or weaknesses to the others, I guess.
Weaknesses. To be honest, there are no weaknesses. No. To be honest, there will come up a lot of things in development and other parts. I'm quite sure we will have within the next 18 months. Hopefully not that much. At the moment, I have no idea what could be really a big problem. But 3 teams are working on the whole project. So we have Krzysztof and his team doing the whole game and the game development. So we have a team for all the mobile platforms to implement. And I don't know, if you have a lot of parts in development, there will be problems at the end, but I'm quite sure we could fix them all.
Hi, Ham Sandwich here. So one of the big burning questions for the nerdy content creators, and you guys touched on this earlier, marrying Unreal Engine with your own physics framework. Are you using entirely bespoke in-house physics code, or have you borrowed like an existing framework like Gmotor or something like that? Or is it entirely your own framework that you're working off?
So based for collisions and things like that, we use engines that do collisions and things like that, but the whole simulation code is a custom built engine. And later, when we had that simulation, we just needed to synchronize it with Unreal Engine, so the game goes on its own thread, physics goes on its own thread, physics sends data to the engine, let's synchronize, and that's it.
We are obviously working with car manufacturers to get the data, which is then mostly telemetry of different tracks that you might have, and cut data to actually build the cars. But we all know that the contact path for driver, obviously with the track, is the tire model, and we didn't heard much about yet. So is there any information regarding the frequency, how many contact paths? Do you actually found a partner yet that can actually give you access to data from the different compounds used in the series that you might replicate?
Let's start with technicals. Since we are still under development, we are still adjusting some of those values you are asking. So for now, I would say you will be surprised when we finally said it and let you know how much is it.
We don't get a frequency.
I don't want to tell you it now and later change it. So because we are still adjusting it.
Still in development. And as for the partner question, though, have you actually, because obviously working with cars, have you spoken with a Michelin, a Pirelli, a Bridgestone, or anyone along those lines?
So we got a lot of data from the automotive partners. So we have the data for the racetracks and for the cars. So that's where we really try to see if our physics and is the car really close to the real data and what happens on the track. But we do not have a special relationship to one of the tire companies. So we get no data from these guys at the moment. I don't know what the problem is. Maybe we should do it and ask them. We didn't it yet. So maybe we will do it. I don't know if it really helps, and I don't know if they really open enough to give us the data which helps us. But
that heavily depends on your system. Like I know which data you can get from Michelin because I worked with them previously, but it depends on what kind of tire model you build, if that's actually something you could use or not.
I guess that's where I was thinking too, just to break away from sort of answering. But yeah, there's an opinion piece on that, whether or not the car feel it matters more and the tire model is subject to that, or if the tire actually benefits it, I guess, depending on code. I don't know if you have an opinion on that, on how you've been dealing with it.
With our current tire model, you can definitely use the real data from the factory to adjust it. I cannot guarantee you that it will be 100% correct. If you just put the data, it will behave like the real car. Probably not 100% correctly because it's only simulation. But yeah, the real data can be implemented into the game.
Hi, James from Game & Muscle. So did you answer the VR question at launch? Are you aiming for VR?
Yeah, we touched on triples, but yeah, I did kind of allude to VR. And,
Yeah. So for the baseline, we just needed VR. So no real sim racing game can exist without VR. So to tell you more, we are currently in heavy development on the VR system. And we have a lot of ideas that on how can we add more features besides just driving in VR mode. We have ideas on how can we improve spectating with VR, so you can feel like you were there watching those guys racing on the tribunes, and many, many more ideas that we can add in the future. But yeah, the baseline is to allow drivers to drive in VR mode. That's what we are currently working on, and later more features.
And another question, day, night, and weather, is that a plan?
Good question.
Yes, it is planned, and we'll start with the dynamic evolution of track system, because for now it's not existing in the game. That's something that we have pretty soon planned to be added, so all those marbling, rubbering on the track, that's the first thing. And later, we want to add dynamic data simulation and a weather system at the end. Sorry.
And finally, when will you be adding a Radical SR3 simulator?
It's a specific car, the Radical SR3. I guess it's like a low-level prototype, if you will, kind of the grassroots prototype.
Low level?
All right, listen. It's not an LMP2, but it's in the prototype category, if you wanted to give it a specific category.
Prototype category of cars.
Yeah, essentially, but yeah. He has an affinity for that car, and it's the only car he's actually fast in. So.
Whereas you need to talk to guys to get some data, and we'll add it.
Yeah, exactly what I would like to say. If you help us to get the cut data and everything, so we could implement it quite soon, I'm quite sure. Yeah.
Cool. We got one more in the back. I know, Arthur, you had one as well, so we'll work that way, but Yuri.
I was wondering what the rough roadmap is of when the beta starts, or when do you plan on releasing the game?
So releasing the game, there's a clear goal we have by end of 23. We would like to have an official release, and in between there will be the steps of beta, open beta. Yeah, we will let you know when we really could start with the open beta. I wish to have it as soon as possible. It's a bit how it goes with the dev team. But having the release by end of next year is definitely the big goal.
And presumably everyone in this room is going to be involved in the beta, I assume. We would hope.
Yeah,
Since they were here for
definitely.
the alpha. So.
You are all on the list, and you will get an invitation for all the open beta things and so on. That's definitely what we have. So you will be, I would say, one of the first who really will know when it's possible to jump into the game and test it from home.
Sounds good, thanks.
And let me say sorry. So what we learned at the event, we will ask for all your measurements next time. So sorry that we had no Simracing for your size. Next time there will be something good prepared.
I ended up having a good Simracing. It was good at the end.
Cool.
Just while we transfer the mic over, I'm going to go back to something James touched on with sort of night, day, and weather. Is there a plan for also an endurance structure to be in the game? You know, longer races, driver changes implemented. Is that something that's already thought of, or is it just sprint for the start?
We want as much flexibility in the game as possible. So if you want to go endurance, bam, you can go endurance. If you want to do 10 laps, just like we did this weekend, bam, you can do it. So yeah, we want to implement the game in a way that it's flexible in the most way possible. So we can configure everything and have whatever you need.
Cool.
Yeah. Arthur from BS Plus. Question to Krzysztof. How far along do you think are the car physics in terms of driving feeling? And do you have any personal experience in terms of driving or any experience in driving dynamics? Are you planning on maybe getting some? So as I heard, it's pretty uncommon for game developers to maybe have driven a GT3 car, yet alone having been a passenger in a car. And yeah.
With the car physics and feeling, the baseline, so the base physics for those two you saw yesterday and on Friday, I would say it's fine. We need to improve feedback given by the steering wheel for sure, because a lot of you complain about it. So we will definitely look into it. We are aware that there's some field to improve there. And about the other part of the question, I've never driven any GT car. I wish I did, and I hope I will have a chance once to do it. But we got some feedback from the outside about how the car behaves, and
in a lot of ways, that's why you guys are here too, obviously, to give that kind of feedback and experience. I'm going to elaborate on the sort of the physics aspect. We were driving here this week with the BMW, with the Porsche, in a default setup. How much is set up and implemented, and how much is the physics engine reacting well to it already, or is there any stumbling blocks there? Obviously, setup's a pretty huge part of competition, and especially esports.
Yeah, the setup is possible already. Most of setups you can set in other products. You can also set them for our game. We just decided to stick with fixed setup, so everyone has similar experience for now. Later, we will also allow you to just manipulate it and check how the game behaves. That's for sure. And more or less, you can change anything.
Cool.
Just to follow up on the force feedback, do you have any plans to, refine it for like a belt-driven and gear-driven wheels to make it more accessible to a broader mass?
Yeah, so as opposed to obviously using direct drive VRS, is there going to be an approach to belt-driven and consumer-level wheels as well, or is it just an open system that every wheel is supposed to adapt to, or is there actually a focus?
We are implementing it in a way that any wheel will work with it. We are trying to make it work to have the best experience on either high-end rigs or the low-end rigs. The system will definitely work with any wheel, and experience can differ because the hardware can limit the experience. So if the hardware doesn't allow for something, you can just feel it. But you can do with any rig you have.
Does that work? Cool. Yeah, it's a tough one because there's so many different rigs and hardware out there now that obviously that does change the experience. Just quickly, we're going to get Josh. I know you just got the mic. We'll get to these. We got about 10 minutes left of your time, Morris, before you've got to jump off. So if there's sort of business or roadmap questions that you want, we got 10 minutes for those, and then we'll pick away at some more of the physics and development stuff with Krzysztof as we get time. So just in case we want to prioritize that.
This is more directed towards esports. Obviously, it's an exciting prospect seeing RENNSPORT and ESL partner up. Is there anything you can share on a roadmap for the exciting future of sim racing potentially being a common thing in esports?
Yeah, what we are really planning to do, that's a bit strange. Normally you don't have it. We are really planning to do starting the sports and the esport before we have the final release. So because esport and the sim racing community is really our main focus and our way for the product to bring it into the market, and therefore the focus is also on the sport. And hopefully we are as far as we really plan to be by beginning of next year, that we really could start with first esport and racing sessions together with ESL and maybe other partners to start the sport. And yeah, that's completely new. We never had these in the gaming industry, I would say, that someone starts the esport before the game was released. But we are quite confident, and we believe that this is our way, and this is how we would like to do it. So yeah, definitely.
Do you guys plan on doing something like this, what we had this weekend, even more until you release it? Or was it just a one-off event, or like LAN events, something like that?
Yeah, okay. There are two things. Doing this kind of events is always hardcore for developing teams, so we have to take them out and preparing a version for these kind of things. So normally, if you're in a development mode, you're working on all these different things, and you're not bringing it together to making it really working perfect. So these kind of things always cost a lot of time, but I think it's worth to do it, really to show it and to show where we are at the moment. On the other hand, it also costs a lot of money. So it's always the question, is it good to take the money and bring it into the dev team or do these kind of things? But it is a mix at the end. So I'm quite sure after these 2 days, I've got the feeling it was really worth every cent we spend on this, to having you all here and giving you the chance to drive it and having you involved. So yeah, plan would really be, and if we could handle it with the team, with the dev team, and maybe with the money, doing a kind of invitational by end of this year, so bring you all together again. And really the fixed plan is what we have, doing this summit every year. So if there's not a chance coming together this year and showing the product where we are, plan is definitely to do it next year in May and show where we are and what's going on.
Hi, Seb Hawkins from Williams. I'm interested to see how you guys now interact with us, because there's different sides, from being drivers giving feedback, but teams giving feedback from a competition standpoint. So how do you plan to work with us, looking at kind of competition structures, as well as, you know, the driver feedback? Because I think every driver likes a different thing, sprint race and endurance, but we need almost like a neutral platform. And this feels like a good base to kind of build a competition that I think everybody can agree on. So how do you liaise with teams that, like, forward now, from, you know, just team managers as well as drivers?
Could I jump in a little bit there? Obviously, I don't strictly represent ESL, but as someone who's worked a lot with them, I will say you guys will be very pleasantly surprised with how player management is dealt with in that regard and liaison. I'll turn it to you, but I think that's a big part of working with ESL, is that they're very good at being a liaison between, even when it's not their own tournament structure and their own tournament organization, but having representation through different, I mean, they work with all the big brands for that reason, right? So it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff in that regard, but you can answer from your perspective too.
Yeah, it's also one of the main reasons why we really decide to have ESL as a partner from the beginning. So we are really more from the developing side and the game aspects and all the new technologies which we could implement. We are not that familiar with all the event things and doing these things, but we are quite sure with all the knowledge from ESL, they helped a lot really to preparing the game and the structure. So making the structure as open as possible to create and set up special events how they are needed, and then also all the knowledge from these guys, how to handle the teams, how to bring them together, how to form a sporting system and so on. Feedback also always really welcome, and now I think it's the moment when we really be public with the product, and so there's the possibility to
get in conversation and really learn and know what is needed.
And I think to add to that, I think it's important that all teams work together for that, so it's not just an individual question between each team, because it's important we're all on the same page as a community. So having 6 monthly meetings with team managers and representatives is an important way for us to work with ESL, because also ESL are going to bring a lot of their understanding of how to make a good competition to us, because we want good racing, but it might not sell to the market. So we have to bounce off each other rather than it being just something gets brought to us and then we go, hang on, we don't like this.
Yeah.
So how do you plan on seeing us moving forwards between our conversations with teams and you guys?
So what we really start, and that was a thing we had in mind from the beginning, and we could have it for the teams and all these things as well. So we start bringing stakeholders together. So first things 1.5 years ago was that I tried bringing some automotive partners together with ESL and really talking about the idea we have and really learn what they all want to have and what they need to do the next steps. And for me, that's exactly the way to do it for the sporting with the teams, with ESL. So creating a kind of platform where we can come together and talk about these things and create things. And therefore, exactly, I said it, but I have to say it again, we took the risk to invite you that early, because it's so important to have these discussions very early to implement it into the game and into the whole system.
Yeah, and I'll elaborate again just from a Counter-Strike perspective, which is where I'm familiar, but there is quarterly to biannual, every 6 months meetings with teams that are represented within the Louvre agreement that they have within the CS community, and even things like desk height at events, chair height, player space for each individual player, temperature in the room, all of that stuff is discussed. Like, they go into very, very layered detail. Even distance from venue to hotel that they're staying in, how much time they have for practice rooms before games. I mean, that's kind of what I was alluding to on Friday as well, that, everyone sees ESL from the outside and the big events they put on, but there's a lot they do behind the scenes working with teams to make sure that they're happy at the event and they can perform to the level that they're satisfied with. And even as much as where you're saying changing structure of events, there was a conversation recently in Counter-Strike about going from MR16 or MR15, which means obviously 15 rounds at half. I don't know how familiar you are with Counter-Strike, and then 16 to win, going back to MR12, which is 12 rounds at half and 13 to win, to shorten game times because best of fives are getting too long. And so they do look at all that stuff, not just from a viewership and sponsorship perspective, but from a player perspective. They understand that you guys aren't just animals in a cage for the sake of a show. They want to make sure you guys are happy with how things are running as well. And they do that with all their games, not just Counter-Strike, League of Legends. They have different committees for each. So I would hope they would do the same for you guys. So we've got last question for Morris, just to be clear, because he's got to scoot to some PR stuff.
All right, hopefully it's a good one. And there's certainly intentions to have realistic physics. That's a big part of it. I think everyone's on the same page with that. However, often best intentions don't necessarily relate to that being correct for certain attributes, whether it's tire, brake, whatever it could be. So my question is sort of around what's your approach around the overall meta, and what's important, in regards to either being realistic, or is the overall meta seen to be more important?
That's, I think, a bit what we had in the beginning. So at the moment, the physics, I think, is quite really close to realistic. So when I understand you right, so and now it's a bit developing question: how do we optimize it? So should it go more into a sim optimized environment, or should we stay with the most realistic physics? That's, for me, there's not a final answer yet. It's a bit what we are doing together over the next 6 to 10 months, and how we optimize the game. So that's also what I said. Getting feedback when the beta is out and getting your feedback regarding physics, and then we will implement it and showing what is the next feedback, and so it will be a kind of way to optimize it till the release.
Yeah, but I guess my point is that, often things just won't go to plan. Some things will be broken, and which is certainly something we see in many other games. So is the overall meta more important, or is it getting the physics right more important?
I would say getting the physics right is more important, yeah.
So if you want to maybe end it there, we'll take one or two more questions from, yeah, there we go. If you want to do one more, and then we'll let Morris jet off.
Hi. First of all, thanks for having us. I think on behalf of everybody, thank you for the great organization. One of the questions we had representing race department, it's all about esports. So we have a thin layer of the esports pros here, but they represent a larger community. Where do they fit in the infrastructure and in the platform? And most of all, you were talking about creating own content. Where do modders fit in? How does that work? How does the real digital ownership work for them? Can they contribute to the platform? Can they earn from it? Can they how deep can they be involved into this project?
Yeah, it's a great question. Therefore, I have to take some time. That's the thing which is really important for us. So one of my main projects I did before was Armor. Armor is a project which is really based on all the community stuff and things. And it was really great to see what happened there over the last 15 years. So this is the thing we also really have in mind. So user-generated content, modding scene, this is a huge thing. And to be honest, what outcome comes from this side is impressive. Sometimes it's better than the level from the internal studios. So we had a time in computer games development when you had all these studios and you're working with a team of 50 or 100 doing a game. Then we had this decade with user-generated content from the community. And I believe there's a new era now coming. So really having user-generated content and giving them the possibility really earn money with that and not getting any credits in the game, really earning money and bring it on the legal side. So it's most of the time it's a gray market thing. And there's only one part which really earns money, and that's the publisher, because he sells the game and all the community stuff really pushes the game, but they never get any things back. So that's really a dream I have, having community and modders that deep involved into the platform and creating a technology which makes it possible, having them involved and really giving them the possibility going out of this gray part, making it an official thing so that it's implemented in the game, and maybe that's a part or an own game, and there is a possibility to really monetize their work and all their passion. So that's really a dream we have.
So based on that question there, is there a possibility of adding that to sort of value-added providers as well, like broadcast companies, setup shops, paint livery providers, basically anywhere there could be a community marketplace? Is there potential for digital ownership on that as well?
Definitely. So the idea for digital ownership also is really giving all the stakeholders a possibility to really bring their own things in and monetize them and really having them as a kind of ownership. So for you as a team, really creating histories on the cars you used for several tournaments. So if you win Le Mans 24 hours, so if Le Mans decides to do it on our platform, then you have this unique car. And you have a value with this car. You have it in your garage, and it's your unique digital ownership you could handle. So and several other things you could option this will bring for you as a team. So you could have your liveries, you could have your limited car editions, you could trade and so on. So that's really the idea behind giving all the stakeholders a possibility to be involved.
Yeah. I think we're going to wrap there, at least for you. We're going to send you off right now if you want to jump, Morris. Thank you very much. And I think that's a really good start. There's lots there. And if there is more questions throughout the weekend, you can still come up and ask. I'm sure they'll be open to answering them now that you've met Krzysztof as well. And I'm sure that there's lots of contact to be had through email and such. But yeah, we do have to send Morris off, unfortunately. But thanks for the good questions. I know there's a lot more. I know there's still some questions specifically about marketplace share and things like that as well, and we'll get to those over time. But hopefully this was informative for you guys, and yeah, don't hesitate to come find them more than me, obviously, in private, and ask them more throughout the weekend before you guys are gone, because you don't get this chance too often. So thanks to Krzysztof, thanks to Morris, and thanks to you guys.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.